Thank you all for listening in to another episode of Pure Bliss and Pure Entertainment called Golden LLama Show. Today we have with us Elizabeth Kipp, who is an all around amazing adventurer. So I'm gonna go straight into asking very big, very important questions right here, right now, in the present moment. We believe that everyone has a secret superpower. What's yours? And how did you discover it?
I don't know how secret it is, but my superpower is love. And I discovered it in my search for loving myself.
It all starts within, right? We cannot give something that we don't have. You cannot pour from an empty. But let's say there is a time machine and you can go back in time and leave a note to yourself. And not only that, but your ancestors as well. What would it say? And would it include tips on how to love yourself?
Oh, wow. Yes. And it include tips on how to love yourself. And I would say be in integrity with your own values. Yeah. I feel like that's where we walk straight into suffering when we step out of our integrity with ourselves. Just trying to think, just based on, I have a fair understanding of as much as maybe one could of the ancestral line on my mother's side. We go back 12 generations. We have records 12 generations back into France, which is interesting. And then on my father's side, we go back that many generations and we see, as you said earlier, adventures on both sides of the of mother and father. There's the integrity and there's the curiosity. And the thing that I would say also, just because you can doesn't mean you should,
I
right?
fully agree with that. And I like to say that the highest form of self love is actually authenticity with yourself. If you truly love yourself, you're not going to be wishing you're someone else because that person in the end is already taken. And I do believe that our soul knows best what the soul wants to experience. So our life, to a degree, has been predefined before we have even been born. But we are humans, right? And sometimes that means we allow the ego to be the driver of this journey while the soul takes a backseat. And that's a big issue. But I know that you transformed your pain into power. What was the pivotal moment when you realized you could not only manage, but also teach others to overcome the chronic pain?
Beautiful question. A great introduction to it. A couple things there. One was my orientation for many years, probably the first 3 decades of my life around health was to look to the doctor for the answers. And I went into science and that even became more entrenched, right? When I studied to be a researcher, that perspective helped me look beyond the doctor for the answer in my health because it's all science works in a framework and it can only comment on that which it can observe, measure, and describe. The Western medicine model works within that framework. But where do we live? We live in the all that is, not just in the part that science can observe, measure, and describe. When doctors said to me, you can't heal from chronic pain, I was devastated at first as a patient. I was vulnerable and I believed them in the moment. But there was a part of me in the back of my mind that was saying, what's wrong with this picture? And I knew that they were telling me more about the model they were working in than they were telling me about how the body actually heals. They were telling me more about this is their model. I wouldn't have been able to see that if I hadn't had the training. It's the only reference I had in my life to go back and analyze what the doctor said from another perspective, which was what lens are they looking through? So I knew I'd have to look out of the science. I'm not saying science isn't useful. I'm just saying it's not all there is. there's more, which is why science is fun because it keeps the paradigms shifting. So when a doctor gives me a pronouncement, you can't heal from chronic pain, which was what many of them said. I'm like, scientific paradigm shift. So that doesn't sound right. And they said, you can't. They didn't say you might not. They said it in this factual way. And science is all about probabilities, not facts. It's not a black and white. It's not a yes or no. So that was fundamental. Widened my perspective on my healing journey. I felt that it was an important message because I've sat with so many patients in doctors' offices and hospitals and rehab centers and stuff like that, physical rehab centers, where with all the years that I was in chronic pain with surgery and everything, most of them didn't know how to speak to their doctor. They didn't have the education. They didn't have the capacity. They just didn't have the information that they needed to talk to their doctors. I taught them to be a patient advocate. That was the things that I did as a patient, but in the patient population was to teach people how to advocate for themselves. And it was just really a natural extension for me when I finally healed to just become a teacher. I can do this. This will be helpful for people.
Many times when doctors tell their patients the verdict, it seems that this is a death sentence. The patient starts to believe that, and there are all those things from scientific perspective, the confirmation bias, the placebo effect, and people start to believe. And once they start to believe that, it sooner or later manifests into their reality.
It creates momentum, right? That belief creates a lot of momentum. And then now you've got a whole other problem. You've got the dis-ease in the body, and now you've got the mind, which is taking it in its own direction. Yeah.
But here's the thing. You experience the both worlds. You experience science and you experience spirituality. How do you balance these two in your practice? And how do you find?
I love the question. We could spend the whole rest of the podcast talking about that one. Yes, as I said, what landscape are we working in? The way I see it is that it's all spiritual. The spirit runs through God energy, creator energy runs through all of it. And so that's an understanding. And so when I'm working from a science point of view, it's with the understanding that this is the knowledge that we have in the moment. This is the way we see it now. I remember when I was probably a senior, maybe a freshman in college or a junior, when the model around the brain, the understanding of the brain at the time was that the brain is fixed. Once grown, it doesn't change. And about 2 years after that, it was like everything blew right open. The brain is this incredibly dynamic organ or system which changes in the moment. It's constantly changing. It's incredibly adaptive. You see how that turned everything on its head. When I speak about science, it's always in the context of this is our understanding now, that kind of thing. And then the other piece, how do I bridge the gap between spirit and science? As I said, it runs through the spirit part runs through all. I'll tell you where the two meet. I always wondered this as a kid. I remember asking my father one time, I was 4 years old, and I asked my dad, there's this religious thing happening, which was the closest I could get to spiritual at the time. And then there's the rest of the world. And when do they connect? Because they're not the same. It's just people they would act one way at service and then they would get out of service and then there would be this other thing. And I saw that really right away. And he said, you asked too many questions. People were not interested in answering that question. But I never stopped asking the question in my mind. And when I first was introduced into quantum physics, I had the aha moment. This is where they meet, right here in the quantum world. So that was a big aha moment for me. So I hang out in that space. A lot of the work that I do, I would say probably 95% of it is present moment based. We heal in the present moment. We can't heal in the past or the future. We have to be here. And this is the sweet spot between science and spirituality through quantum physics. Yeah, that's my answer. And we could continue, but go ahead.
Now, quantum physics is something that has been found by many ancient philosophies and religions. I think it goes back to the time that people were still living in the caves, and this primordial energy has been found by Taoists. Now, this is going to be another tricky question of mine. I believe nothing in the world is changing because the energy rarely does. It only changes how it manifests. It changes the graphics only slightly to confuse you. It's something else, but in reality, the essence still stays the same. If there would be a new religion, people wouldn't fall for that trap, as nothing lasts forever. So the new religion would be called completely differently. But religion, you could define that people are obsessed with it. If it's not something in the religion, they won't speak about it. And religion uses them. Religion is being used by people to achieve personal goals. Now, I know that there are people that use science to achieve personal goals. I also know that there are people that have close mind to the point that they won't discuss with other people about something if it hasn't been proved or disproved by science. My thesis is that science is a religion of the man from 21st century. What do you think about that?
I think really what I keep hearing in the last 3 sentences that you said is a manifestation, massive ego. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, that's just what from my perspective. A religion
Cool.
trying to control people. What is that? That's the ego. People trying to use something for a goal. That's usually an ego that's in control there. I know people that are scientists that don't believe, I'll put it this way, they stay in that framework. And a reference to a God is they won't commit. I can't say because we can't prove it. That would be an example. We can't prove it. Now, that'd be interesting to have a conversation around that whole thing. But I've heard that before from people. I'm not all scientists. I'm just saying that's a viewpoint within that I've heard. And then people like Einstein was incredibly spiritual, very different. And also, I've heard scientists that are agnostic, that are actual atheists. There can't be a God. So you've got the full spectrum.
And I believe that is perfect because that allows people to experience the most if there is so much creation possible between those two extremes. And I also do believe that religion or science in the end is a tool. If you use the tool, it's perfectly fine because it's building you. But if you allow the tool to use you, that is a highway to be destroyed. Changing the tone a bit, if you could wave a magic wand or perhaps even ancestral feeder and heal one aspect of collective human suffering, what would it be and why?
One aspect of human suffering. I go right for the soft underbelly. I would heal the wound of separation. I feel like that's the wound of all wound of the collective of humanity, is this wound of separation, that we think we're separate from one another. If I had a magic wand, I think that would change.
So, by separation, you say that on the desert, people feel like they're single grain of the sand because they're not accepting the role that God given to them. But in the end, sooner or later, you will need to embrace that mission, right? Because God will give you gentle nudges in the first place. But those gentle nudges, sooner or later, will become kicks into the butt to the place where God sees you. Because in the end, God have planned for everyone. And I also do know that you do yoga as well. And your approach is quite unique. Could you tell us how does yoga complement the process of overcoming addiction or managing stress?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how unique my approach is. Yoga really lays out a beautiful landscape for living, and living in a place of knowing the true self and it shows us a way not to be trapped by the ego and the suffering that the egoic tendencies can bring in. And also the karmic, they call them samskaras, the old patterns. So it could be a habit that I've had from childhood. I get up and I brush my teeth every morning. That's a habit. Now, that habit it happens to serve me. Right? I'll give an example. I had a habit when I was a kid of chewing my nails, and I don't anymore. My nails are short because they're in water. I'm washing water and stuff. They tear and they don't last too long. But I don't bite my nails anymore. But what's that about? Why was I biting my nails in the first place? That had to do with me being anxious and having not been breastfed, and so needing some kind of instinctively needing that oral soothing, right? That kind of thing. But I found a way to find more peace within myself, and that old habit just disappeared. Now, I didn't use yoga at the time. Oh, that's not really true. I started meditating when I was about 25. That's about when that habit just broke. And meditation is an aspect of yoga. It's one of the 8 limbs. And it's really good at just really calming the mind. The use of yoga is it's a beautiful process for living life. And it's also pointed at the addiction recovery community. And I think we all have addictions, especially nowadays. Tech addiction is a great example. Right. We're just, anyway, that's an example of kind of modern day addiction. Shopping. And I'm not even getting into alcohol and drugs and all that stuff. I'm going to some other things. Also, the samskaras that we have, these habits, they're ancestral. We come in with these habits. And yoga and ancestral clearing, they're separate from one another, but they both address this from their angle. And what's interesting about each one of those, they leverage the present moment.
I'll tell you a secret. It's not only yoga or clearing ancestral trauma. Most of philosophies talk about it because the karma is also could be explained as original sin or epigenetics. Even in Shaolin, as I studied there, they have been saying that being spiritually aware dissolves any old karma that could be explained as old woundings, old experiences that we don't want to face, or coping or escape from reality. And this is really funny because most of us, in one way or another, did experience trauma. But what I'm curious about is what's your go to yoga pose or meditation for instantly calming the mind and the body?
Oh, I actually have a breath practice that I do for instantly calming. That would be a left nostril breathing. Just left nostril, long, deep breathing through the left nostril for instant calming, because that stimulates the calming center in the brain. Science tells us this, but the yogis knew it before science discovered it. There's an intimate connection between the long exhale and the brain. And there's this intimate connection between breathing through the left nostril and calming in the brain. And you put the two together and you've got this great way to calm down at will. Isn't it sweet that we have such practices to change our state so quickly? This is another reason why I'm a teacher, because I feel like we should learn that in pre-kindergarten. This is something we should be teaching our kids as soon as they can absorb the information.
I love that. My go-to, I would say I'm a fan of Tai Chi Chuan, but I also do understand that if I'm going to get attached to Tai Chi Chuan and start saying that it is the best, it would start to lose its value and it would no longer serve me. Now, love, healing, compassion. If Healing Spaces had a theme song, what would yours be? And would it involve a llama?
A theme song? You mean one that's already been written?
You can have a go with your creative mind.
If love, compassion, what were the 3 ingredients? Love, compassion, and what?
Healing.
Oh, and healing. I had a theme song. I'm going to take us right back to where we started. The greatest healer lives within you, which would be the love in your heart, the greatest healer. And we can even go into love on another level. I have always said that the trinity of a neutron, a proton, and an electron in an atom is the dance of love in the universe.
Manifestation of creation.
Yeah. And of course, there would be a llama.
And donuts. Let's not forget about donuts. Donuts
Okay.
are a very important ingredient of healthy breakfast, dinner, and supper. Jokes aside, you wrote a book called The Way Through Chronic Pain. You offer tools to reclaim one healing power. Can you share a tool or technique from the book that our listeners might find particularly transformative?
Yes. And I'd love to share the ancestral clearing. Ancestral clearing is a modality, an energy modality that was pioneered by Howard Wills and was further developed and is taught by John Newton of Health Beyond Belief. I've been a practitioner of it for 10 years. I was first introduced to it 11 years ago as a healing modality for myself. And I was so impressed with it that I was like, I'm taking the first training when I was in a pain management program, and it was very successful.
That sounds like something out of an epic myth.
It's pretty epic. So I'd like to share an ancestral clearing for the effects of intergenerational trauma with everyone. And all you need to do, everyone listening, wherever you are, and this is just as powerful on the replay as it is live, just notice whatever you're feeling in your body. The sensation, I feel my sitting bones on the chair and my feet on the floor, and I feel a little bit of pressure right at my cheekbones here, right below my eyes. Yeah, just notice the sensation. Give it a number from 0 to 10 in intensity, and just breathe normally and let these words pass over you. We'll be using the word forgive to mean we're offering up that which no longer serves us to creator, to creation. Here we go. Higher power, creator, Holy Father, Great Spirit, Divine Mother, infinite oneness. You're known by so many names, yet you are one. We ask humbly and gratefully for us and all our ancestors and all their relations through all space, time, dimension, realms, lifetimes, and incarnations, for all sickness and the ensuing grief and suffering, for the times we stood powerless and unable to ease the pain of our loved ones, for survivor's guilt in plagues and pandemics that swept through our lives and our communities. Please help us all forgive one another and forgive ourselves, please, and thank you. For misunderstandings, disputes, arguments, fights that broke out and resultant injuries, whether intentional or unintentional, for all the guilt anyone carried because of it, for every raid, assault, incursion, battle, war, and holocaust, and all the angst, the betrayals, the fierce anger, and any guilt we felt because of these actions, or guilt that others felt because of our actions. For all unresolved resentment, enduring aversions, loathing, and outright hate that erupted and continued unrelentingly, intergenerationally. Please help us forgive one another and forgive ourselves for once and for all of it, no matter what it was. Please and thank you. For all secrets, hidden pacts, and times we were sworn to silence under duress, for any abuse, slavery, torture, or any other injustice, and all that arose in the lineage because of these events. Please help us all forgive each other, forgive ourselves. Please and thank you. Please help us release each other and release ourselves, find peace with one another and have peace with ourselves for once and for all. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. Please and thank you. And take a nice big breath in and let it out and just notice how that feels.
You know what? That reminds me of a modality called Ho'oponopono.
Yes, the Ho'oponopono is a little higher frequency than this.
People invested more energy into Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, it's a little, I work with that, but I don't lead with that.
Step by step,
Yeah,
brick by brick, building beautiful castle for the soul to live.
there you go. I love how you hang out in the nothing. That's what I love. That's one of the things that attracted me to you so much. And I would say that the castle that we're building that you're referring to is really releasing anything that no longer serves us. That's what the castle would look like.
How would your castle look like?
I see a big white light. That's all I see. Just illumination.
So no bricks at all. I would probably have lava and
Oh,
gold and pure amazingness and bliss. But talking about bliss, to reach the top of the mountain, there's gonna be countless obstacles, and we have tendency to carry tons of stuff that we don't need, like going on a hike on Sunday morning, and instead of enjoying the hike, we collect the rocks from left and right, calling them pains, traumas, negative emotions. And you speak about chronic pain in such a comprehensive way: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, even financial. How do you approach healing when the pain comes from so many different sources?
It's all the same. The pain is all the same to the brain. It sends the same signal it hurts. So what's different about acute pain versus chronic pain? The brain sees it. In acute pain, we have the stress response. And in acute pain, the stress response goes into the on position. We meet the threat, whatever the thing that's causing the pain, we meet it and resolve it. The stress response goes back into the off position. In chronic pain, the stress response gets stuck in the on position. That's the issue. It's a pain signal, and the signal keeps going. Then we become hypervigilant. The human body's really not made for chronic stress like that. We're made for this balance where it's coming on and off, where the stress response is balanced. But it really doesn't matter where the pain is coming from. If it lasts for 15 days out of 30 for 3 months or more, it's chronic. And now we've got a problem. We've got a change in the brain. We've got more negativity. And then that negativity tends to turn within us, and it can also be turned towards others. You're wrong, the world is wrong, all that kind of stuff, or I'm wrong. But we got a problem in either direction, right? That's a problem. And also there's a lot of chaos in the brain from chronic pain. This is the value of meditation in the chronic pain space, because it helps quiet the mind. And you know that as well, but maybe not all the listeners realize how valuable it is. A lot of people say, I can't, my mind's so busy in meditation. It's not about making the mind quiet. That's not what meditation's about. Meditation is about just noticing that you're having thoughts, but not getting caught by them. So you become the witness of your thoughts, not the actor in them. And that's a very powerful distinction. Chronic pain.
Mind. The mind is a tool, right? If
Well,
you
the mind,
allow the mind to use you, I can tell analogy about that, that there was this great, amazing dancer, and she danced beautifully, impressing everyone. So she was on the stage one time doing a show. She was amazing, glorious, but out of nowhere, she started to second guess her movements. She started to overthink. Guess what happened? She tripped, she fell, no one was clapping. You either dance and you think about dancing. You either live or you think about living. If you allow the tools to use you, that's a highway for distraction. Now, you were mentioning about the chronic pain.
yeah. Any particular question about it?
Think sometimes that the pain is a messenger to our conscious mind saying, hey, bro, hey, girl, listen, you need to put your awareness onto this. I'm just a messenger and I have some mail to you. If you're not going to open the door, guess what? I'm going to deliver the mail anyway. But then the bad news will become even worse news.
Yeah. So I love that. It's so true. One of the things that was very helpful for me, again, my science background really served me because I studied computer science. I had to learn computer languages and do coding and stuff. And so I learned about just information. Science, we're looking at data. I studied physiology and stuff like that. And I got into my pain experience and I was like, pain is information. But I went from my pain is bad and judging it and having that be the burden. See, that judging the pain is, I'm having this bad experience. That's helping to lock the pain. Pain is information, completely different. It's this neutral space. So when I'm having a pain experience and I can't share it with somebody and I've decided that it's bad, now what's happening here? I'm isolated. I'm disconnected from others. I'm disconnected from my authentic self because of my reaction to the pain that I'm feeling. And now I'm getting attached. I'm in relationship with it and I get angry and I try and control it, and I can't control it. So I get angrier, and then I get more isolated because I'm even farther in my anger, controlling. I'm even more distant from myself and others. This is a negative spiral because you can end up getting, now I'm really mad and I'm really in relationship with it. So it's a real negative spiral. I call it the
Mm,
cycle of suffering. And the only reason I know about it is because I realized I was doing that. And so part of the book is like how to get out of that spiral.
mm.
And part of that is understanding that pain is information. It's not this bad thing. We're not at war with pain. It's just here to serve us as you said, a messenger.
It sounds like a hamster running into the wheel. It really doesn't matter if he's gonna run left or right. He's still gonna be trapped into the loop. You need to embrace that emotion. You need to be present with it. Because if you're gonna be distracted with external stimulus, or you're gonna get attached to it, you're gonna invest energy to it, you're gonna diminish it, increase it, whatever, it's gonna stay there. But nothing lasts forever if you put your awareness to it. And if you really have the balls and courage to change, if you have it in your awareness and you can laugh at it, you can expect some real great magic to happen, because it is
Mhm.
like saying, I'm bigger than this event. This event has no power over me, and it dissolves completely like it never happened. And so much space for new opportunities.
Exactly. And we're going right back to what we were talking about in the meditation space. I'm watching my experience. I'm not identified with it. That's what you're speaking to. Oh, I'm having this experience with pain, but it's not who I am. And that's a game changer to not be identified, especially in the chronic pain space when chronic pain tries to steal your attention away from everything but it. And if you can't really navigate that path of pain information, what is it trying to tell me? Getting curious, appreciating it for what it is, and not let it steal your attention away. That's the thing. This is what we're talking about here.
There are so many ways a disease can be cured, and no way is better or worse. In traditional Chinese medicine, they used to say that all sicknesses are a result of pent up energy in the body, and they had fabulous thesis about how internal organs relate to a particular emotion. But let's leave that for future conversations. And talking about the future, looking into the future like looking into the crystal ball, what's one goal you're working towards in your own life? How do you see your work evolving?
Oh, that's funny. How I see my life is I'm continuing my own evolutionary path, which I have no idea what that's going to look like. I'm excited about my future.
I love that.
Yeah, but I have no idea what it's going to look like. And
I
that's okay.
I think I found a hack. You know how people use shortcuts and they
Mhm.
get lost? Like, I know that if I'm gonna go outside to a new restaurant or whatever I have in mind visiting, and I'm gonna use a shortcut, oh boy, I'm gonna get lost. But being lost is the only way to be found. You probably have heard about something called Wu-Wei acting by not acting, which is a thesis from the Tao world. In the West, it's called surrender experience, constantly in meditative state that allows you to be open to the full possibilities that the universe presents to you. I also do believe that we create so much friction with our thoughts and emotion that it takes much more time because we think we can plan our growth. That's stupid. Like, the flower doesn't plan where to grow, and it's ready, and it just blooms. But we're like, no, to grow, I need to do this to-do list, and I need to check all of the items. And if I don't check at least one of them, I'm not growing. And that's like putting restrictions upon yourself. And that's very harmful. So I encourage everyone just to embrace the fact that everything between heaven and earth is perfect and embracing who they are. And sometimes the journey is about unbecoming who we think we are to allow
Mhm.
what we truly are to shine through.
I love you. You said all that so perfectly. That's just beautiful.
Mm. Thank you so much. So, lastly, for those who want to embark on this healing journey with you, where can they find you? And what's the first step they should take?
Oh, you can find me at my website, which is my name with a hyphen, Elizabeth-Kipp.com. You got to put a hyphen in there to find me. Otherwise, you'll find the other Elizabeth Kipp, who's a web designer and a photographer who's amazing, but she's not me. Elizabeth with a hyphen, Kipp, KIP.com. You can book a session with me there. You can find me on social media. There's lots of resources there. There's a big blog space. Just jump up on my website. There's all kinds of goodies there for you.
Instead of using the search, Google is not reliable these days. You can just click the link in the description of this video. And as always, thank you so much for listening to another episode. And stay ready, stay tuned for another episode. Stay blessed till we meet again. Thank you so